Great. So we're on record now then, Vlada. So over to you, my man. You've got about half an hour to share all your wisdom with us.
That's an English half an hour, Vlada.
I'll try. Well, nice to see you all. And it's a really huge privilege to be with you guys. I've been involved cross-culturally for quite some times now. I had the opportunity to live in a different culture in England. I had an opportunity to come back in Serbia as with a Westerner way of thinking. So I needed time to acclimatize myself to the Serbian culture and the Serbian way of thinking. I had the opportunity to work with post-communist countries in the East. I had the opportunity to work with some South European countries and be involved with North and West Europe kind of countries, which all different culture. All of them needs a different approach. All of them needs attentional thinking, how you're going to approach to the different situations. And I can tell you one thing, if you get involved working with the different nations, you're going to enrich your life amazingly. You're going to discover yourself in a different ways. You're going to discover the beauty of God's diversity he created in the world. And you're going to sharp your mind to think how to bring unchangeable truth of God to all these diversities that exist around you. So getting involved cross-culturally means you're not going to be lazy, okay? You're actually going to work on stretching yourself, your way of thinking to be more productive wherever God sends you to go. So it's honorable to be with the people who wants to get involved with the different nations. And I say, go for it. Just go for it. It's amazing. So when I do this kind of trainings, I have more time usually, okay, but now I have a half an hour, so I have I thought about what will be the most important things to say. So I have 5 or 6 points I would like to share with you and not waste any time. So the point number 1 is enthusiasm is good, but not good enough for a mission, okay? Why? Because I've seen so many very enthusiastic young people who go on the mission, but that's not good enough, okay? They usually leave some casualties behind them and casualty in their heart, you know? So enthusiasm is good, but it's not good enough. You gotta do some training. You gotta give yourself attentionally to think, to prepare yourself. So when you go prepare in a battlefield, you know, actually, whatever enemy throw on you, whatever you meet down the road, you're gonna be ready for that. I have Maurice heard this story, maybe other people heard, but my favorite missionary allegory and story is about monkey and the fish. Okay, so if you gonna remember anything from today, just remember this story. Okay, I think it's a great story. So monkey and the fish goes like this. A typhoon had temporarily stranded a monkey on an island in a secure and protected place. While waiting for the raging waters to recede, he spotted a fish swimming against the current. It seems obviously to monkey that the fish was struggling and in need of assistance. Being a kind of heart, the monkey resolved to help the fish. A tree precariously dangled over the very spot where the fish seems to be struggling. At considerable risk to himself, the monkey moved far out on the limb, reached down and snatched the fish from the threatening waters. Immediately, he ran back to the safety of his shelter. He carefully laid fish on a dry ground. For a few moments, the fish showed excitement, but soon settled into peaceful rest. Joy and satisfaction swelled inside the monkey. He successfully helped another creature. Now, we all agree, monkey was very courageous. He had a lot of enthusiasm. He had a very good attention and a very noble motives. He wants to save and he wants to help somebody who was in need. But he had one fatal fault. He could not see behind his own frame of references. He believed what was dangerous for him, it was obviously dangerous for a fish. And what is good for him, it was obviously good for him. And because of his ignorance, he's ended by doing a damage rather than doing a good he tended to do. And the worst thing I tell you about all this is that monkey even doesn't know the damage he did. And I don't know how many missionaries we had in the past here who had all the best, and I'm in the same category. I've been in England and I know the stupid things I've done now, what I've done then, all in the good intentions. And it's usually they just don't know all the stupid things they've done and how they upset the people and how actually they made the more damage behind them than the good of them. They will go back to the countries thinking we've done a great work, but in fact, no, it wasn't that great. If you only train yourself, if you only, before you can give yourself to some kind of training, to some kind of training yourself to intentionally think, not go by your habits of your old culture, but actually train yourself to intentionally think how you're going to do, what you're going to do, where you're going, what is the mission, what kind of people are there, what is their heart taking of, what they like, what they don't like, how actually to approach them, how actually to earn trust, how to effectively communicate with them, how do you bring how to bring the message of gospel in the right way. You will be more ready and more prepared to see beyond your own frame of reference. And you will be less a silly monkey, noble and good monkey, and you will be more somebody who will actually leave some good trace behind you. So training, it's hugely important thing. Okay, let's not there just be some enthusiasm that leads you to another culture. Make sure you train yourself. Make sure you give yourself hours and hours of preparing, teaching your mind how to think intentionally, how to see behind your frame references, how to be ready. Read about the mission field you go, read about that nation, teach yourself theology, teach yourself good skills, how to earn trust and stuff like that. So when you go there, you're ready. Okay? So that's my point number one. Never, I will say, if it's possible, never go on a mission field without have any kind of training. Suppose a person once went through the year of medical school, and then on a half of the year he concluded, he says, all this training is a waste of time. People are dying every day. I just need to go and help them. We will say that is not a doctor. That is a stupid thing. We will never put any kind of trust in that kind of person. When people who serve us, we want them to be trained. We want to have a trust in them that they go to some kind of training. So what they're going to deliver to us is going to be trustworthy. How much more we need to be trained well when we go in a mission field amongst the people who never heard the gospel, in the places where churches don't exist, where the gospel needs and church needs to present in a different light, in a different shade. How much more we need to be shaped when we do such a great work of building God's kingdom. So use your time now when you're not still in a mission field. Use this time well so you prepare yourself well for the place where you go. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say, it's about the right, the wrong, and the different. Okay? In every culture, there is the right way to do things and there is the wrong way to do things. If you grow up in a Western European home, in a culture with a strong industrial heritage, then important in the right values are precision, punctuality, principles, and rules. But that's not important things to me. And in my culture, that's not important things. If you grow up in a Southern European countries, if you grow up in an Eastern European country, if you grow up in a Mediterranean kind of home, in a culture with a strong agriculture kind of heritage, where you depends of your neighbors, okay? You don't depend on the system with the rules. You depend on your neighbors to help you to achieve things that you need to achieve through the day, to have somebody to help you to go through the difficulties. Then the more important thing is to do the right things and to be the right person in the eyes of other people. So in one culture, the rules and regulations are important thing. But in another culture, being a right kind of person is much more important. So you have two different perspectives of truth. In one place, the truth is in the light of the facts. But in another place, the truth is in the light of relationships, being an honorable or dishonorable person. So you have a two different approach to truth, for example. So you have a right things and the wrong things. Now, We learn very early in our life what is right in a culture. We don't even think about that. We know what is right and what is wrong in a culture. So in our mindset, we have those two big categories of right and wrong. And just in case, we have a small category of different, where from time to time, things that we don't understand very well, we put in this kind of category indifferent. When we are in our own culture of origin, then it's easy, because we are surrounded with people who think the same, have the same categories of right and wrong in the small category of different. The problem is when you go in another culture, okay, and people have a different categories, and in those categories, same categories, but in this kind of categories, they put the wrong things. Successful in mission, okay, or how effective you're going to be in a cross-cultural missions, okay, depends on that, how much you're ready and willing to enlarge your category of different. The more you're able to enlarge your category of different, so more things you put in them and says, oh, that's just a different, that's not right and wrong. With these people in this culture, they just do things differently. The more you're going to be effective to be a proper missionary to reach people in that country. So as soon as you label, so if you don't have that kind of broader category of difference, and you have a just wrong and right, you're going to be quick to judge people, to judge the place, to be negative about that place. You're going to close so many doors. So as soon as you label something as wrong, you know, there is a new series of responses that start happening in you. If something is wrong in that culture, okay, different than your own culture, something is wrong, what you want to do? You want to correct it. You want to change it. You start saying to the people, this is wrong. You're doing things wrong. It should be like this. We got to remember the mission is not a task, okay? Mission is relationship. So mission cannot function without you making relationship with the people in that culture. It's not task. It's not I'm going to serve some church, to serve some mission for a year, 2, 4, all life. I'm going to make relationship with the people. And through that making of relationship with the people in this culture, I'm going to bring gospel and kingdom to them and see kingdom growing in that culture. Never forget that, okay? You are building a relationship with the people. For you, maybe it's just a task, but these people look at you. For them is a personal, for them is relationship, because they don't know anything about your task in your mind that you came. And that's why it's very that's why it's very important to build relationship. And in that context of build relationship, you gotta have that big category of different. Those people are doing things differently. So I don't judge them quickly. I don't want to correct them quickly. When I see things that's wrong than how I used to do things, you know, I don't jump and say this is wrong. I want to change this. Second thing is, when you say something is wrong, you lock up yourself and you don't want to understand that cultural context anymore. You close yourself for any kind of learning. You lose opportunity to learn something about the new culture. But if it's different, you say, this is different. Why is this different? Why these people see this in this way? You start thinking, you say to yourself, well, if this is different than how we used to, how do you bring gospel in this kind of cultural differences that we have? How do I work building disciples in this kind of things that is different than how I do it in my culture? How do I build church in this kind of different kind of setting? How do I communicate gospel differently? It shapes your minds. You start thinking much deeper about the theology, much deeper about the philosophy of building church, much deeper about the God's kingdom. But if you label things around you, the things you see in a new culture as differences, it liberates you in so many ways. It sets you up from the stress in the first time. I know how much I had that kind of stress when I went to England, all unintentionally, all because I didn't train myself intentionally to think about those things. So get frustrated so many times because it's not how I used to, it's not how it's in my culture, it's not how I used to it to be. So slightly unconsciously, I start being hurt. I start being unsettled with the things, and that just build all kind of negativity that you don't want in mission if you want to survive and be successful in a mission. It frees you from the negative judgment. Nobody likes negative judgment. The more you get rid of yourself of negative judgment, you're gonna build better relationship with the people in a new culture. Practicing acceptance, it's much easier. You're going to be much more open to the people. You're going to ask all the beautiful questions that opens people to explain why things are different. It's going to build a relationship with the people around you. So if we treat everything as right and wrong, which is our natural default or our mind, we do a great disservice to the human diversity that God has placed in his creation. But if we treat everything as a cultural differences, then we do a great disservice to God, who authored uncompromised word of God. So you gotta hold those two things, and that is the beautiful task on any missionary. So you cannot separate those two things. If you are a proper missionary, in one hand, you wanna honor God's diversity that God's created in the human relations in the culture. In other hands, you wanna honor that uncompromised word of truth. And that is the task of missionary. Going in a different culture and hold these two things together, it's gonna shape you so much. You're gonna discover God in a different way. You're gonna do a great service to the kingdom of God if you're able to hold those two things together. Third thing, you gotta adjust your expectations. You gotta adjust your expectations. My goodness sake, I don't know how many missionaries came here. I was the same in England. I was the same in other places, with a huge expectation that I'm the person to who God is gonna change the world and everything else. Huge expectations, and down the road you get faced with the harsh reality of mission, and that you are not the savior of the world, and no, it's not gonna everything be finished through you and in your generation, through your amazing work, through your amazing talents and everything, and that God is planning to use you for a season and then bring somebody else. You gotta adjust your expectations, or you're not gonna survive, because every disappointment in a mission, any frustration you experience is result of some expectation that hasn't been fulfilled. We are coming from nice, cozy, our home churches. Everybody's home church is a cozy and nice, and we have expectation. It should be like that in another culture, but it's not. The kids' work sucks, the worship is nothing like you like it. Those people, their social life is nothing like how you want to be. The beer is very watery, all that kind of things. And that just built all kind of frustrations in you because you had wrong expectations. You gotta bring those expectations on the surface. You gotta think a lot of things in the mission is the word I mentioned again and again. Intentionally, you need to think about the things. If you go by default, you're gonna unsucceed, but intentionally about those things, you're gonna change yourself towards the right directions. You're gonna name them, you're gonna own them, you're gonna control them, you're gonna ask all the difficult questions that you don't wanna ask. You gotta think about these kind of things. Maybe locals, people, feelings about your nations is not what you expect it to be. Maybe living conditions is not exactly what you want what you expect it to. Maybe worship in that church is not exactly how I want it to be. I like when people raise their hands, but in this church, they don't raise their hands. I like with all these prophetic words I have even in my home church, but these people, they don't know anything about that. The relationship they have, the local custom, why they're doing like this, why they're doing like that. You gotta adjust your expectations, because that culture and that place existed much longer than you. They're not gonna change. They're gonna change. You gotta change. You gotta change so you can change from inside with the word of God, with the kingdom of God, change all the negative things in that culture. But that's the way. You gotta change yourself first and become part of the culture. So through you, God can change that place. So the more you close that gap by intentional thinking and preparing between expectations and reality, the more you're going to be ready, the more you're going to be successful in the mission. You're going to last much longer without losing your heart, and hopefully you're never going to lose your heart, but actually you're going to fall in love with that culture, fall in love with those people where you are, because you didn't allow the wrong expectations to ruin you down. Fourth thing, don't be a square peg in a round hole. Don't be a square peg in a round hole. When you enter another culture and country, you don't leave your squareness, your cultural baggage behind. You take it with you, and you become a proverbial square peg in a round hole. At that point, you have a choice. Are you going to continue to maintain your squareness, or you're going to choose to adjust and knock off some corners and become more round for that culture? And by adopting the local ways, you will find a greater fulfillment to yourself and greater effectiveness to activity that God's put you. So that means you gotta adopt the host culture. You gotta change to be more like that host culture. There is no other way. Okay, I've seen so many missionaries who comes and they just keep a little island of their culture, you know, in the nation they came, and they never affect people around. They are too British, they're too Westerners, they're too American. They just no one moment want to change and to be the part of that culture around, you know, and they are just isolated island. They last some time and they go back and they don't leave anything behind. Actually, they have a negative influence. And this is a very important thing, because how much you adjust to that culture will affect many other missionaries who's going to come in the future from that culture. It's so important. It's so important. So right now I can tell you what I feel about some mission organizations who came from the West to us, you know, and I can be negative and I can say, actually, I wouldn't like to have them again here. Why? Because there was a missionaries in the past who never wanted to knock off that squareness in themselves, and actually they left bitter taste in our mouth. They didn't leave a good legacy, and that affects how we see the other people who comes to that nations to serve us, or the other people who comes to that mission organization to serve us. It's a hugely important. If we go to that next host culture we go, and we adjust ourselves in a way that's honorable and honoring to the people there, we open amazing door for so many new missionaries who will come in the future after us and continue on our shoulders work for the next generations. So we are not on a mission just for ourselves. We are ambassadors who comes and actually open door for many other people to come and open people's hearts. Says, yeah, we want to have those people because they've been amazing. If you are coming from that culture, if you're coming from that church, if you're coming from that mission, please come and bring more, because we had somebody like you in the past and he was amazing. He builds up us. He was one of us. He wasn't the island amongst us. He was one of us, and we miss that person. So if you refuse to change or lose your squareness, you send the wrong message, man. You send the wrong message. You say, I don't care to adjust to you and your situation. You know, I just like my stuff. I don't like your stuff. I'm not one of you. You know, or you say, I'm a superior. I'm a better educated. I don't want to change and be like you because I'm better. My culture is better, you know. Or you send message, you can't trust me. You can't trust me because if I don't want to change, I don't want to learn your language. I don't want to learn your local customs. If I don't want to be one of you, you know, you can't trust me. I'm here today, tomorrow I will go. Or you send message, my ways are better than your ways. And I always close the door. But if you decide, well, actually, I'm going to adopt this culture, I'm going to be just like one of them, by learning greetings, learning the key words in a new culture, by smiling frequently all the time, by resisting to make negative comments, by learning the pain that culture and those people are going through, actually, right, asking the right questions, not allow their pain to go over your heads, but actually absorb and feel the pain of that culture in a moment, by being vulnerable, by asking questions. You send beautiful message. He says, the square people enjoy the round people. They actually respect me. I respect them. For somebody who is like me in my situation, if somebody comes and actually adopt my culture, he says, hey, there is a valuable things in your culture. Don't leave your culture. He sends amazing message to all the young people who wants to leave Serbia by saying, why do you want to leave Serbia? Look, I adopt Serbian spirit. I love your culture is amazing. Why do you want to leave your culture? Look how great it is. Look, I come from England and I decide to leave my Englishness behind and adopt your culture, because your culture, your nature, your situation, it's amazing. Stay in your own culture. That is how you build the kingdom of God. It's so important to leave your cultural baggage behind you, lose your squareness, and adopt the culture where you are as much as you can, because the message you send, it's absolutely amazing. Trust. As I said, mission is not task. It's not something you're doing for a year. It's relationship. It's relationship with the people. Even if it's not relational for you, for them is relational. They're not part of your plan. So for them, you come, and if you do it right, you build them up with your relationship. If you don't do it well, you hurt them. So if it's relationship, what is about in cross-cultural mission, the key part in relation is the trust. How do you build the trust? How do you build the trust? In many ways, you gotta come in a culture and learn how these people build trust. And in every culture, trust is built differently. In one place is in a one way, in another place is another way. I can tell you in my culture, because my culture is very, very collective culture. We are not individualistic culture in a way of thinking. We're collective culture, which means everybody depends on the people around. Building a relationship with them, it's two things are very important. And that is being vulnerable and being in need. We don't trust people who never have need for anybody else, and we don't trust people who are not vulnerable. If you don't build vulnerability among Serbs, they say, well, that person doesn't want to have a relationship with you. Because we depend on one another, we like doing things for one another. We love helping one another. We jump in with one eye, we're looking for ourselves, another eye, which we look how to help people around, because everybody depends on one another, because you don't depend on the system. The individualism doesn't exist in the way how it exists in the West. We always help one another. That's a very difficult thing when you come from the individualistic culture. So you need to adjust, you need to learn that. You need to you deliberately make yourself vulnerable, and deliberately make for a help, ask for help me with this, help me with that, and be in a need. So people have that, and I'm using the right word, have that privilege and honor to help you, because there is a huge honor and huge privilege in helping other people. That's how you build trust in my culture. In other places, you gotta learn, you're gonna listen and learn how do you build the trust. Of course, there is a lot of neutral things that will be the same in every culture. Learn to smile, learn to be part of people's life, take initiative to be. For example, one big thing is, if you're in the West, you wait for somebody to invite you for a dinner or to visit that person. That's not in my culture. In my culture, you honor somebody by just popping up, calling and says, "Well, you're together. I'm gonna come and see you." That shows honor to that person. Says, "Wow, somebody's gonna come and see me, to be with me. Somebody wants to spend his time with me." Opens people in an amazing way. So if you're a missionary in Serbia, don't wait to be invited, okay? Because you're not gonna be invited. We don't invite one another only for special occasions and stuff like that. We are taking initiative to be in relationship with other people. So if you're missionary in Serbia, take initiative to see people. If you're fresh here and you know just the 5 people, just like that, 5 surface relationships, just explore those 5 surface relationships by going intentionally and be with those people. Take them for a coffee, bring some cake, share, do a favor, be there to help, just jump and be there for them. That's how you build the trust. So you got to explore for every culture, how do you build the trust? And then do that. Don't wait, do that. And another things I want to say, which add from the last time, because I was thinking about that a lot, is because everybody who goes to in a different nation where they speak different language, we tell them how important it is to learn the language. Yes, it's important, but trust me, more than learning the languages of the culture, more important is to learn how to communicate. Learn how to, that's 2 different things. Learn how to communicate. This art of proper communication, it's very different from the culture to culture. No, it's different from nations to nation. So even in Europe, okay, there is a huge scale how people communicate. So for example, in United States, Anglo-Saxon cultures, people are trained, okay, to communicate as literally, as direct, as simple as possible. Even when Morris asked me to do this again, this training, he says, it was excellent. You know, it was simple, it was direct, 6 points. That's how we want it. And that's how we like it. Do you see what I mean? It's a literal, direct, simple as possible. So good communications, it's all about the clarity, up to the point, you know, the whole accountability for accurate transmission of message, it's placed on communicator. If you don't understand, it's my fault. I wasn't clear enough. I wasn't up to the point. Trust me, in the rest of the world, in a good part of the Europe, in every country in Europe has the Latin origin, you know, in Asian, Latin America, Eastern Europe, African country, message is always communicated indirectly. It's a lot of reading of the air. It's a lot of reading the line. It's a lot of, you need to work hard to understand what that person means to say, because so many times, not so many times, almost always, what is said is not exactly what is mean. So you got to work those things. You got to learn this act. In my culture, you never say no. You will never say somebody directly to say no to you. It's so rude. It's so dishonorable. So even if persons say yes, you got to read the line behind and says, well, actually, what is body language? What is yes? I have a lot of work to do tomorrow, but yes, that usually means no. Okay, you gotta read those things between, because people say yes because culturally is unacceptable to say no directly to somebody. So they will, between the lines, reading the air, communicate negative answer to you, but the mouth are always gonna be positive. So anthropologically, that's called low context communication and high context communications. Country who are directly and clear, it's a low context communication. So you got to use lot of words to be at the point. In a high context conversation, people know how to read the context, and they don't use so many words. They use less words because the context will define what is saying here. So you got to learn those things. You can learn the language, but actually you still can miss so many things. You know, if you are doing a teaching and you say, is that clear? Everybody understands? Everybody's gonna say, yeah, of course we understand, because it's so rude and it's so disrespectful to the teacher. It looks like teacher hasn't done good job if you say, no, actually I didn't understand everything. Can you repeat it? So everything is answered yes. So you gotta assume, well, actually, if they say yes, that doesn't mean everybody understands. I gotta see with the open-end questions. Are they gonna say a bit more about what they understand, what they don't understand? So a lot of my job working with the East and West countries It's actually be the translator of the communication, not of the language, but of the communication. So a lot of time when I work with my friends here in Serbia or Bulgaria or somebody else, it's a lot about what somebody from the West said and how they hear and how to communicate some things to them. We can never understand in my Eastern European mindset that actually I can be clear and direct in my communication with the people from West, show your needs, show what you need and stuff like that. We can never do that, ever. So we will communicate things between the line, hoping that somebody is going to understand what we mean between the line and save us from the shame of openly saying, please, I'm in need, can you help me? Hoping that somebody can offer us help by reading the air, which usually don't happen because Westerners don't understand so many complicated, stories and stuff like that. So my job is to actually say to the people here, listen, if you need something, just write directly, openly, politely, just tell them what you need and know that when they say yes, that absolutely mean yes. If they say no, that's not insulting, they really can't, but there is no hidden meaning behind and stuff like that, nothing like that. Just make sure you communicate by the rule that exists in a low context communication, and that is tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That is the rule of the communication with the Anglo-Saxon cultures. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, then you tell them what you told them. And it's clear like that, make as clear as possible. And then I gotta teach my friends from West when they communicate with us here, just make sure what you're saying is not exactly gonna be what they're gonna hear. Make sure that they're not gonna respond negatively to you, because I've been in so many situations when my Western friends are so happy how things going so well, and I'm in a panic saying, no, it's not. Can you read the air? It's nothing good. This is going to be huge disaster. You're going to go back like that monkey thinking you've done a great thing and stuff. You leave catastrophe behind you. You got to explore more. You got to ask more questions. You're going to do the open-ending questions so you can stir the things from inside to pop in so people can be open to tell you what they really mean. So there's many more things I can tell you about those stuff, but I think it's enough for now. What do you think, Maurice?
Vlada, you did an excellent job.
What's we got to do?
What's that?
He's told us what to do. What he said, what do you think? So we all have to go, yes, brilliant.
Right? Okay.
Culturally, I've learned that from
Vlada. So my wife is learning, so that's good. Vlada, that was a masterclass, man. You did a great job. Let's all show our appreciation to Vlada. Well done, Vlada. Thank you very much. And yeah, I mean, Vlada is very rich in his experience with that. So I'll send you the bullet points from that soon. He's saying enthusiasm is not enough. Training is essential. Work out make the category of the different as wide as possible between what you might think is the right and the wrong. The importance of expectations and ensuring that you have adjusted your expectations. Don't be a square peg in a round hole. The importance of building trust, and a trustworthy person looks different in a different culture. It's very, very important. And then language is good, but learning to communicate is even more important. So I think these are excellent points, Vlada, and very good for a Western mindset. So thank you very much. Thank you for your linear and list-based teaching for us. And
if you are from Eastern culture, I will tell you a story.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you told us one story about the monkey and the fish.
Yeah.
That was cool. Well, thank you very, very much. Okay, folks, what we're going to do now